Hello, everyone, and welcome back to One Soccer. I'm your host for today, Josh Deming, and I will be joined by a panel to discuss the 2024 League One Canada Women's Inter-Provincial Championship. So let's first introduce you guys to the panel. First up, we have Mackenzie Barwell, who is a sideline reporter for the tournament. She's also the digital and in-stadium host at Forge FC. Next up, we have Jade Kovacevic, who is doing color commentary for the tournament alongside Alf de Blas and Pierce Lang. She's the founder of J9 Training for individual and small group technical training. She is a League One Ontario women's player since 2016. She's played in 2 World Cups at the U20 level for Team Canada, and she's played professionally overseas in Italy and Hungary. Next up, we have Haley McGoldrick, who's a League One Canada special contributor, leading writer on all written content around the tournament. You can find her written work at olympic.ca, Sportsnet, the Toronto Star, among others. So now let's pass it over to the panel to give a little bit more information on themselves, starting with Mackenzie.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, I'm really excited to be doing this and just covering the tournament in general. An interesting thing about me too is that I grew up playing soccer, and eventually I got to play for the FC London Reserve League One side. And in that time, I was coached by my fellow panelist, Jade. So I'm really excited to just be covering this tournament in general, now having experience both playing the sport and watching it at the League One and CPL level.
All right, Jade, you're next. Nothing but good things to say about Mackenzie, I hope.
Yeah, I can't reiterate that more. It was actually Mackenzie and I crossed paths at the beginning of my coaching career, which is, I believe it's like coming on a decade now this year, which is crazy to think about. But time flies, full circle moment. I love it. But now, as you mentioned, J9 Training is a business that I founded where it's small group training and solo training as well. I've been a part of League One Ontario now for, I guess it's 8 years, and I've seen it grow so much. So I'm really excited to see this Inter-Provincial Championship come to life and some top talent across the country.
And Haley?
Yeah, I'm really excited for this competition as well. I think that women's soccer is continuing to grow across the country. And so being able to see a competition like this, knowing that so many faces are going to be on the biggest stage, getting to be shown on One Soccer, the NSL is coming next year. There's a lot of players who are likely going to come out of these leagues and go play in the NSL. So I think it's huge. Being able to just cover it, I'm so excited to be a part of it.
That's awesome. So now let's give a quick introduction to the tournament. So the 2024 Women's Inter-Provincial Championship will take place at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton, Ontario, where the winners of League One Ontario, League One BC, League One Quebec, and League One Alberta will battle it out and become the champion of the women's game here in Canada. The competition will kick off with a pair of semifinals on Friday, August 9th at 5:30, followed by 8:30 Eastern Time respectively. The winner of each semifinal will advance to the championship final on Sunday, August 11th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, while the other two teams will compete for the third place match at noon Eastern Time that day. The best part is you can watch all the matches for free here on the One Soccer YouTube channel. So now we're going to move on to our first topic of the roundtable today, and that is the evolution of League One women here in Canada. Now, there were 7 teams participating in League One Ontario back in 2014, and there are now 48 clubs in 4 provinces participating in 2024. Jade, you've been around League One for a while now. What do you make of this incredible growth?
It's amazing to see. It's reflecting the amount of popularity and interest there is within the women's game, and it's growing so much. And now that we have a competition like this, where, like I said before, the talent from across the nation can come together and compete, that's what our youth players want to see, and that's what we as players want to strive towards to play for every season, right? So to see it grow from 7 to 48, I think you said, that's outstanding. And as a player, that makes me feel really proud to be playing in this league.
Mackenzie, anything to add?
Well, yeah, I mean, to your point, Jade, not only do the players now have this incredible space to play semi-pro, but you think about the audiences and the viewership and the popularity that's surrounding not only the sport and women playing soccer, but League One just in general. Because I remember, watching you in that League One space, I knew it was the next step, but having a different perspective now and watching the CPL, for example, I can see just how much of a almost national phenomenon that it is, especially when it comes to women playing soccer.
Now, I think one of the beautiful things about the growth is that League One Canada has created opportunities for Canadian women to continue playing into university and the pro game. There's almost 100 women that have played in the League One system nationwide that have gone on to sign professional contracts. So, Haley, how important is it that these opportunities are being created not only for the players, but also for coaches, media members, and journalists like yourself?
It's huge. I mean, for players, like you said, at the last Olympics. Vanessa Gilles played hero for Canada twice, and she's League One Ontario alum, and that's kind of how she broke out, and she signed in France. You've got players like Gabrielle Carl, Evelyn Vienne, who are playing for the Canadian national team, who are all League One, whether it be Ontario, Quebec. They've all started somewhere, and it's huge because just having that opportunity to be able to play in a semi-pro league at home, that's how you get eyes on you. And to your point as well, it's bigger than just the players on the field. It creates coaching opportunities. It creates opportunity for women to break into sport as journalists. Sometimes being in the men's space is very intimidating and it feels like you can't get in. Having a safe space where you can report on the women's game is huge, and having an opportunity like this means a lot to so many people. So the growth of it means just more opportunity for people surrounding the game as well. And I think that's the most important part, that it's really big for the players on the pitch, but also everyone surrounding them.
Just to the respect of the university landscape, I think it's interesting also having the perspective being a student at McMaster University and covering different sports there. When I look at the men's and women's soccer team, and women's in particular, not only is League One a space for them to continue playing and maybe further their career, but it's also a supplement to their university career, right? So in the off season, a lot of these girls are playing still as teammates. For example, you take FC London, there's about 4 or 5 girls from the MAC team who just won that cup competition. So they have that way to, maintain their form and fitness and also their team chemistry and have those opportunities outside of their university games and season.
It's well said. And now we're going to move on to the value of the national championship. For years, there's been the Canadian championship on the men's side, but nothing for the women until the introduction of the women's Inter-Provincial championship in 2022. What does having a competition like the women's Inter-Provincial championship do for the players, Jade?
Oh, it creates endurance for us, right? It's a long season. And to that university point that we were just talking about, we have some players coming back from a spring season heavy, whether it's in the US or here in Canada or in Ontario, and got to have that momentum coming into a fresh environment, playing as many games as you are. I think it's around 18 this year. It's a long season, plus cup games, plus training 3-4 times a week, knowing that there's that end goal and what that winning potentially that competition could look like for not just yourselves as players, but the club, and evolving the bigger product is exciting. And as a player, it makes me want to win every single game. Every moment is crucial, and you want to take advantage of that to the next level because you know that there's something bigger waiting for you at the end of the tunnel.
Haley, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I completely agree. There's not much I can add to that. I mean, Jade's the one with the experience, and I think she's super deep into it. So I'm somebody whose soccer career ended on a B team when I was 18 years old. So I don't think
That's still relatable, Haley. That's still relatable.
Yeah.
so. I think she put it perfectly.
Perfect. Well, then let's move on now and take a look at the 4 teams competing in the tournament. We have NDC Ontario, CS Mont-Royal Outremont, Whitecaps FC Girls Elite, and the Calgary Blizzard. What can we expect from these sides? Give me one reason why you think each club could win, and what is one thing each club will have to watch out for, Haley?
Yeah, I'll take the West Coast teams. I won't yap too much. I'll give the other ladies a chance to give in their input. But I mean, first and foremost, Whitecaps FC, they're the only team in this competition who has experience in this competition. The other 3 teams, it's going to be their first time in it. So first and foremost, they are the defending champions. They want to come back and they want to do that. Also, they're going to be competing in the CONCACAF W Champions Cup. So that's added incentive for them as well. They want to come out of this on a high. I think for them, they're a really top goal scoring team out of all of the teams. They're ones who have multiple players who are scoring 5, 6, 7 goals in a season. So I think that's huge. And one thing for them is that I think the biggest thing having to play Calgary Blizzard is that a lot of those girls come from Calgary, have played for Blizzard, the Blizzard alum. So one thing that they need to watch out for is kind of that some people will kind of know their DNA due to the fact that they are former players. And I think that Diogo, who is the sporting director for Blizzard, he has mentioned that a lot of those players have moved on from that club. So they kind of know their DNA. That's something I'll have to watch for. And then for Calgary, obviously, they're coming into this as the first ever League One Alberta winners. That's huge. That's a really big confidence boost as well. And coming into this, they're going to have to watch for, as I said, Whitecaps being a team that knows how to score goals, that knows how to attack. They can't concede early. They really need to ensure that they're getting on the board first. In their final game of the season, it was tied 1-1, and they won on penalties. Their keeper, she stopped the final shot. Lauren Houghton, she was doing amazing. So she's a player that we'll talk talk a little bit more about later, but I think that's the biggest thing between those two teams is that they kind of know each other a little bit. There's been some players who have moved from Calgary to Whitecaps, and they know each other a little bit like that. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think obviously Whitecaps want to defend their title and go out on a high, but Calgary's not going to make it easy for them.
Jay, can you tell me a little bit about the host team?
Yeah, I think playing on your home turf has some added pressure to it, right? At the same time, it gets the blood flowing, the adrenaline rushing, especially as a player myself. I'd love nothing more than to play in front of my friends and family. Having played against NDC, and they got away from us twice this year, they are a very organized group, and they come together with a game plan. They know how each other's play. They have each other's habits in their back pocket, knowing what kind of movements they want to make. Super dangerous in zones 3 and 4 as they enter the opponent's half. And you got to look out for some players like Jada Collins. She's super dynamic with a sharp eye for threading passes between your lines. And if you don't, take her out on her first touch or close that space, she will dribble. I've seen her dribble across the field, and she can be very effective when she wants to be. Another person to look out for is April Lentang, South Alabama Jaguars, just committed there. In July, I believe she won a goal. She got a goal in the 95th minute and took her team to win over Woodbridge, which is a player that isn't going to give up very easily. She's super dynamic, can run in behind and capitalize on any space given inside the box, just outside the 18. So, yeah, if you're playing against NDC in this tournament, you got some added maybe some added endurance because you're playing in front of some home fans, but a team that's going to show up organized, absolutely knowing what's going to be coming at them. So it'll be fun to watch.
And Mackenzie, you have CS Mont-Royal Outremont.
I do, and I'm excited about this side, but let me just say, Jade, I love hearing your perspective because this feels a little personal, Yeah. She will dribble. She will dribble.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jada Collins. She's a really cool. I love how she plays fullback.
All right, well, looking at this, CS Mont-Royal side, I'm really excited because this is a team who exceeded their expectations in their season in 2024. I think it's safe to say that they are and have been going through a rebuild. They've got some younger players, some newer players, and they've finished their season, I believe, with 29 points, 8 wins, 5 draws, and 3 losses. So they went into their playoffs as the 4th seed. In the semifinal, they beat the winners of the regular season 5-2. So they make a statement right out the gate and then go on to beat CF Montreal in the finals 2-1. So coming into this tournament definitely with some momentum here and something to prove, because anyone who's familiar with the Canadian soccer landscape knows that CF Montreal is a pretty highly sought after academy. So for them to come out with that win in such a highly contested manner, I think is going to give them some grit. And as we watch this first match with their soon-to-be East rivals, I think they're not going to go down without a fight.
So Jade kind of touched on it, but now let's move over to some players to watch. Who are some of the standout names or potential future stars we could be hearing about for years to come? Haley?
Yeah, one of the biggest ones from Whitecap FC Girls Elite is Geneva Hernandez-Gray. She's won pretty much every accolade it seems like you can win in League One BC, top midfielder, young player of the season, and she's expected to represent Canada at the FIFA U20 World Cup. She scored 8 goals this year, as did Kaylee Hunter, who's another player to watch for Whitecaps. She has added 8 goals and 6 assists for Canada's U17 team, so they're both definitely players to watch. Another one is Ashlyn Phillips from Calgary Blizzard. She is a goal scorer as well, an attacking threat. She is responsible for, they were trailing to Cal's United Women, scored 2 goals in 8 minutes to go from down to up 3-2. So she's definitely a player to watch out for as well.
Mackenzie, is there any players from Montreal that excite you?
Yes. I've got 2 here, starting with the goalkeeper and captain of this team, and that is Leia Palacio-Tellier. Not only has she stood out in terms of her shot stopping and work ethic, but she's also just become an excellent leader for this group, and I think will be that balance throughout the game when there are those highs and lows. And one other thing it's important to note with regards to Leia is that she's been with the club since she was 13, so she'll be a great ambassador, and knowing the values and core identity, and she'll just absolutely be somebody that her teammates look to between her experience and leadership. On the attacking end, though, one of CS Montreal's biggest assets to the team is Shayla He. She has an excellent understanding of just the game in general. and thanks to her tactical and technical abilities. Jade used to make me do one-on-one drills. She is somebody that I would not want to be matched up against in that scenario. Okay, so I expect this CS Mont-Royal side to want to put her in those isolated situations because she can take advantage of, as I said, her technical and tactical abilities, especially when it comes to dribbling. But that said, don't expect her to stop on the defensive end. She has an excellent work rate and does not forget about her defensive duties, making sure that she's a threat on both sides of the pitch here.
There's definitely going to be a lot of talent to keep an eye out for. The Women's Inter-Provincial Championship is kicking off just as Canada's Olympic run is ending. So Jade, what could these players take from the Canadian women's national team's run in the Olympics to take advantage of their opportunity this weekend?
So much, man. Like, as a player, they were resilient. They took the worst odds that were thrown at them and they pushed through and broke down walls. I'm sure, facing the situation that they did as a group, they came together and they kept each other going. You heard a couple comments from Vanessa Gilles about how they had some sleepless nights and they were not necessarily eating, but they were there for each other. And you could really see that in their performance on the field. And it's unfortunate that they did fall short in PKs against Germany, but at the end of the day, you got to take what they were given. The fact that they made it out of their group, that's pretty impressive. And we're all here back home supporting them. And I feel like there's a bit of momentum and a little bit of unfinished business. I don't know, Mac, maybe you can kind of feel that too as an ex-player. Haley, you too. But I feel like walking into this tournament, I would want to be representing my country on another level. And like you said before, like we all have been saying, this is going to be bringing top talent from around the country. And it's kind of like an inter-country Olympics for the game, and getting the opportunity to play on a stage like that is, it gets the pulse going and the blood flowing. So I'm just really excited to be a part of it. I think we're going to see some really cool things happen this weekend on the field.
I think so. And I mean, talking about cool things that happened, our women's national team went bronze, gold, 6-point deduction, found a way to get out of the group. It's really an exciting team to keep an eye out for, and this tournament should be just as exciting. So, Haley, is there anything else that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing too is just speaking on my own experience, and I'm sure Jada Mackenzie can relate to being a woman who grew up playing soccer. Really, all we had for a lot was just the national team to look up to. There's no league here. There still isn't a league here until next year. So many women's soccer careers have been built on watching this national team, watching obviously Christine Sinclair, Caitlin Kyle, Carmelina Moscato, all these players growing up. And now the next generation's getting to do the same. And as Jade said, that resilience and getting to see the Canadian team go through something that not a lot of teams are going to say that they can relate to going through. And so I think being able to watch that and then come into this weekend for a lot of these women, they've been watching this team for years. I'm sure watching them win gold in Tokyo in 2021 was really formative for their careers too. So I think being able to take that and see what the nationals team has done and put that into their own careers, and that's something that a lot of these players are striving for as well, I think it's huge.
Mackenzie, do you think the players will be fired up especially after watching the incredible odds that Canada overcame this tournament?
Oh, yeah. And I think, Jade, you also said it best when you felt that there was this sense of momentum. And I think another word for that is togetherness. And Christian Jack said it very well the other day when he spoke about this controversy. It's that Canada needs to, redefine the sport in this country and what it means to them and what it means to be a Canadian soccer player. So I think, this tournament is just another opportunity to do that. And as we all have alluded to, we grew up watching these women at the national stage because that was the next level after League One, and it's just wanting nothing but the best for them, to see them thrive, and now to be watching these women who will eventually play at that stage in the NSL, which I'm sure we'll talk more about. Fired up, I think, is probably the right way to put it.
Now, you brought up the NSL, you brought up momentum, so I'm going to put those two together, and we're going to talk about the women's sports in general and the movement that is happening all over the world. So many leagues that are improving year after year. An important thing to do with that is also getting fan buy-in. So knowing that the NSL is coming in the next couple of years, that's important, but also it's worth noting that there are incredible women right now doing big things in Canada. So Mac, why do you think that Canadian soccer fans should jump on the bandwagon now?
Well, yeah, you said it perfectly when you alluded to the NSL coming within the next year or so, but there are women in this country right now who are playing with enough quality to play at that stage when the time comes, right? And I think I've seen this kind of through the CPL as well. Forge have, it's incredible to see how much, not only the CPL, but Forge in particular, being a Hamiltonian myself, how much it's grown over the past couple of years. I just started working with Forge 2 seasons ago, but I look at photos and videos of, what the stands looked like in 2019 compared to last weekend. And it's night and day, really. And at the end of the day, the fans truly make the league what it is and the game what it is. And their dedication motivates the players to play better and to, make that next step, and just the overall competitiveness. So point being, having such a passionate community and having people jump on the bandwagon now is so important for just the sport in general, and especially women, given the lack of opportunities that we've seen from them in previous years. And now that we have the CPL, there is evidence that getting involved now, fans can help really shape the future of a sport and create this foundation for when the NWSL arrives.
Haley, should Canadian soccer fans start taking notice now?
Oh, absolutely. And it's very cliche, but the truth is kind of, if you build it, they will come. And you saw it with the PWHL, that they started this league in January and every single game was sold out and Canadians were so excited to watch. And people have been begging for women's soccer in this country at the professional level for so long. I mean, like we said, we've watched this national team win bronze, gold. It was just a matter of time. And I think that we're going to see amazing turnout for this because it's been something we've wanted for so long. We've been begging the NWSL to expand here and it's never happened. And so finally having something where you can go out and girls, people always say little girls, but it's not even just for little girls. It's for girls my age. It's for women older than me. It's for everyone who's ever loved or played soccer in this country to be able to actually go and physically see professional women's soccer. It's huge. And so I think that people who are kind of slightly interested, it's the best time to get into it, being able to see women at the Inter-Provincial Championship who are likely to go on to this next level at the NSL, see them thrive now and continue to follow their journeys. I think that it's massive. And I think that pretty much if you're not buying in now, you're going to be late to the train when it leaves the station shortly.
Yeah, it's not early, right? You're on time if you buy in now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's very well said. And speaking of buying in and kind of taking a look at the player pool, Jade, I'm wondering how similar the NSL could be to the CPL in terms of having League One as a ready-made player pool that they could select from, because there's definitely talent there that could take the jump up.
100%. I think if we look at some of the CPL teams for reference, a lot of players did stem 6 to 8 players initially on the roster from League One. And if we look at some of the players that have signed pro contracts from across League One, whether it's Quebec, BC, Calgary, and Ontario, there's about 100 females playing at the pro level. So I think League One is the perfect opportunity to find talent at a youth level, to take them to the next step, that are ready, they're competing, and that are wanting to learn and grow within the country that is providing it, right? And again, having the opportunity to play in front of your friends and family on a professional stage gives young women an idea of what could be next for them and completely change their landscape and what they want for themselves. So it's a great opportunity. It's super exciting as a female baller myself, as a female coach, and getting to work with young athletes that have now something to aspire to, and now see female players playing in this Olympics and say, hey, I could be there, or I could be playing at the next level here in Canada.
Mackenzie, do you think there's going to be a similar path for NSL compared to CPL?
Oh, absolutely. You can already see the parallels because, as Jade said, so many players, women from League One, have gone on to play professional, but the difference is they're forced to go overseas, right? And that's what a lot of guys talked about when I speak to players on Forge, is they're so grateful to be able to stay in this country and continue to make a living playing professionally. The difference is now, eventually when the NSL comes along, women won't have to go overseas. They can stay here. And as we talked about, there is this domestic pool of talent now. That's the difference, right? And I think, to your point, Jade, by the way, Sigma FC is probably the biggest one in terms of that pipeline from League One to Forge. But so many of these guys, I would say almost half the team, have come from that pathway. And not only do they contribute their success and development to their time playing at the League One level, but, you know, the quality of that stage is not to be underestimated. You know, like, it's not like you're going from, it's not night and day. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think of the right way to put it, but they really, players who did come from that pathway were set up for success when they did come to the CPL, in the same way that women will be set up for success going into the NSL.
Coaches as well. Haley, do you think that's a great opportunity to get not only the players, but an opportunity for coaches to take a big step up?
Oh, absolutely. To Mackenzie's point, it's a pathway for everybody. It doesn't just mean for players as well. Coaches getting exposure as well, having that ability and a place to do it. And as she said before, a lot of opportunities for people, players, coaches. I know people personally who have had to go overseas to be able to have those opportunities, not even as a player, but as a coach as well. So again, being able to do everything at home domestically just makes life so much easier, logistics so much easier. And it just also provides a place to, again, have people you can look up to on your home turf, which I think is the biggest thing too. When you're continuing to grow, you grow things from the grassroots level. So to be able to have opportunities, knowing that if you're playing soccer from when you're 4 years old and maybe your playing career doesn't work out, but you want to be a coach, there's going to be opportunities for you when you're at home, is massive.
Mm-hmm.
So we have one final topic. I want to hear from all three of you. We're going to look ahead to the next Women's World Cup, which is in Brazil in 2027. Where would you like to see the state of women's soccer in Canada be at that time?
I think ideally, you know, the NSL is a couple years under the belt, and we have a good fan base, and there's more awareness growing amongst the opportunities for women. I think from there as well, it's giving our talent here an opportunity to potentially make our way into that national program and that pool of players, and not having to necessarily pack up and leave and go overseas. The caliber will be raising, and maybe we see some talent that are on the tail end of their careers, even coming out of that national program, you know, finish off their careers here, which would be incredible, right? And for those players that are coming into this league, getting to, you know, step into an environment with somebody who's a veteran, who's had experience at the top level, we could see a lot of transition happening. And I think another World Cup coming up in, what is that, 2.5 years, 3 years? That's so exciting. And Brazil, of all countries to host, the culture there around football is elite, right? So I think there's going to be so much awareness for the women's game and excitement around it. So myself as a footballer, I'm really, really thrilled that this is going to be coming our way.
Haley, what are some of the big things you'd like to see?
Yeah, touching on Jade's point too, I think that the fact that the NSL will have a few years under its belt, as she just said, I'm literally repeating what she said, but the fact that it'll have been operating for a few years, I think the biggest thing too is for our national team pool going into that competition. I know in the last Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand, and even these Olympic Games, some of the roster decisions it felt like people didn't agree with, and they weren't sure why certain players will be selected. And I think it would be helpful for Canada to be able to have a giant pool of selection. And I think that's exactly what we're building towards, is to having, you know, 3-4 options for each position for Canada going into these competitions. It doesn't feel like it's the same players over and over. We're going to have new, fresh talent. In 3 years, there's going to be a lot of new faces. There's going to be players who have retired. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just the growth of the game, because it always kind of streamlines into the national team as well. And that's the biggest thing. And coming off of, not disappointing, especially this Olympics, we've talked about this team's resilience, but going out in the quarterfinals as the Olympic gold medal champions in Tokyo is not the ending you want to have. And then a disappointing World Cup as well. So being able to rewrite that for the national team, I think, is huge. And being able to have just all of these options due to leagues like the NSL will be huge for Canada. And that's kind of the place that I would love to see it in.
That is all the time we have on today's episode. I really hope you all enjoyed it, and a big special thank you to our guests today. You can catch the 2024 League One Canada Women's Inter-Provincial Championship live on One Soccer.